Maximum partner in brief of ongoing progress work on the shutdown of Lagos infrastructure.
Bring all the traffic into this direction.
We are going to work to ensure that better during the If we don't support the people now, the road will collapse.
Good day and welcome to another interesting episode of your program Infrastructure Weekly. I am your guide Ajibola Onwuchekwa. In this week's edition of the program, we'll be focusing on the 3-year scorecard of the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing and also the oversight visits of the Senate Committee on Power and Works to some major roads projects and power project sites in the Southwest geopolitical zone. Join us after this break for more on the program.
Coming together of opportunities, and this is what
Infrastructure is the backbone of development, which explains the Buhari government's effort at bridging the facility gap. Infrastructure Weekly is a television package designed to bring you latest information on hundreds of development projects going on in various sectors all over the nation.
there is no state in Nigeria today where you will not see our contractors busy at work.
Power generation, rural electrification, road rehabilitations, national housing scheme, construction of roads and rail lines across the country, you name it.
We are now able to produce 7,000 megawatt of power. That is no longer debatable.
Infrastructure Weekly is Nigerians working together for a better Nigeria. So be better informed to take better informed decisions. Watch Infrastructure Weekly, showing on Channels Television Thursdays 2:30 p.m., NTA Network Wednesdays 5 p.m., and Core TV News Fridays at 8 p.m. Infrastructure Weekly, making development known.
To start off today, we take you to the 3rd year anniversary of the assumption of the Office of the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, and the scorecard of the ministry in the intervening period. The minister, who spoke extensively on the 3 sector under his ministry, gave a before and after his assumption of office status. He persisted that the federal government has delivered on its promise to Nigerians in the power and works and housing sectors.
In the history of Nigeria, it is difficult to find a federal government such as the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, which set out such clear objectives and is able to come back to show its progress reports. Before 2015, many workers had lost their jobs, while contractors were out of sight due to lack of funding for infrastructure. However, shortly after President Muhammadu Buhari's assumption of office and inauguration of the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, public works and roads and bridges, power value chain as well as housing were recovered. It is 3 years now and Fashola is at this gathering to present a 3-year scorecard on Nigeria's infrastructure sector.
The feedback from road users is that the journey times are reducing on the completed sections. Only last week, one commuter sent me a text message that he traveled from Warri to Lagos in 5.5 hours. This is what I promised in our inaugural address.
With regard to the power sector, the ministry has improved on what it met by increasing capacity in generation from 4,000 megawatts to 7,000 megawatts, transmission from 5,000 megawatts to 7,000 megawatts, and distribution from 2,690 megawatts to 5,222 megawatts.
The report of our survey and feedback mechanism confirms that many of you now have public power for longer hours compared to 2015, and that you now run generators for shorter periods compared to 2015. And also, you now spend less money on diesel to power your generators. That is money that may not be visible to you, but it is money clearly that this government is saving by improving power supply slowly and increasing your disposable income. As one of the people I spoke to recently called to tell me that they no longer have to iron all their clothes 1 week in advance, as they previously used to do. You see, these are human experiences, and people call and tell me that, oh, I used to iron 1 week in advance. But they say now that their supply is proving reliable, it is proving predictable, even though it is not yet fully stable and uninterrupted. That is progress, and we must continue. We must move forward, we must consolidate on our mandate of change, and we cannot afford to go back.
We are confident that with the distribution expansion, with the implementation of these policies, and the cooperation of the DISCOs, the constituencies that you mentioned will be better served and happier with our progress on incremental and stable, uninterrupted power.
I believe this is where we are, which is referred to metering. Metering will also help, obviously, to eliminate this estimated billing. And of course, we are also putting in order, before, in parallel with this metering being available, a cap in terms of the maximum, or at least the maximum for which a customer who has not obtained a meter should pay. I think we are working together with the ministry to achieve the total good for our customers. And the DISCOs are also working with us to make sure this is done.
In the works sector, the outcome is that there is not one state in Nigeria today where the federal government is not executing at least one road project, and construction workers are engaged on these sites.
We acknowledge that the work is not finished, but as long as we remain able to finance projects, I have no doubt in my mind that it will get better. Our intervention on roads does not stop on interstate roads and highways. It has also entered the universities. As a first phase, we are operating now in 14 federal universities where unattended internal roads are now receiving attention in the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Federal University Oye-Ekiti, University of Benin, Federal University Lafia, Federal University Utuoke Bayelsa, Bayero University Kano, Federal University of Technology Owerri, University of Maiduguri, Federal University Lokoja, Federal Polytechnic Bauchi, and Federal University Gashua, Kaduna Polytechnic, Federal College of Education Katsina, and the University College Ibadan. This is the first phase under the 2017 budget, and we are preparing to do more under the 2018 budget.
The 2018 procurement is ongoing and will award more. So you should be able to give tremendous credit to this administration for having awarded 121 roads within 3 years, vis-a-vis 144 roads within 17 years by the previous administrations put together.
For 2016, the kilometer of roads constructed was 277 kilometers. The kilometer of roads rehabilitated for 2016 was 345 kilometers. The number of personnel employed, even though you didn't ask about it, let me tell you, is 17,749 people. For 2017, the kilometer of roads constructed was 488 kilometers. The kilometer of roads rehabilitated for 2017 is 256 kilometers. And the number of personnel employed is 31,227. Then for 2018, as at November 2018, the kilometer of roads constructed is 497 kilometers. The kilometer of roads rehabilitated is 284 kilometers. And the number of personnel employed is 30,402.
As for housing, public works are being undertaken on federal secretariats in Zamfara, Bayelsa, Nasarawa, and Ekiti, a national housing site in every state, and to mention the Zik Mausoleum in Onitsha, which has now been practically completed.
Let me also point out that our pilot national housing program has led to a nationwide housing construction being undertaken in 34 states where we have received land. No less than 1,000 people are employed on each of those sites. This is quite apart from the staff of the successful contractors who won the bids to construct. These sites are now an ecosystem of human enterprise, where artisans, vendors, suppliers, and craftsmen converge to partake of opportunities and contribute to nation building. These are some of the most vulnerable people for whom President Buhari has delivered.
Difficult or abandoned projects like the second Niger Bridge, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and the Bodo Boni Bridge have been brought back to life. Sections of Ilorin to Jeba, Sokoto to Jega, Sokoto Ilela have been completed, while progress of works continues nationwide from Jada to Mayobelwa, Enugu to Port Harcourt, Lagos to Ota, Ikorodu to Shagamu, Benin to Okene, Lokoja to Abuja, Kanu to Maiduguri, Abuja to Kaduna, Kanu, among others.
As we build roads, we are also attending to old or damaged bridges and restoring the value of maintenance. So while the Loko Oweto Bridge is nearing completion, the damaged Tatabu Bridge linking Ilorin and Jeba has been reconstructed, and the Tamburawa Bridge in Kanu, the Isaac Boro Bridge in Rivers, the Eko Bridge in Lagos, and the old Niger Bridge that links Anambra and Delta are receiving regular maintenance attention.
As festivities end-of-year activity approaches, consequent movements of goods and services will put pressure on roads nationwide. Observing this, the minister assures Nigerians that the ministry's Amber Month team has been set up to work with the Federal Road Safety Corps and other stakeholders to keep the roads safe and power supply on during the festive period.
Our Amber Month Planning Committee, working with Federal Road Safety Commission and the Federal Road Maintenance Agency FEMA, have been meeting to prepare themselves to make your movement during this period as conducive as the circumstances will permit. FRSC will deploy their personnel across major transport corridors of the country during this period of heavy movement to help manage traffic. They have committed to setting up 9 camps and 18 help areas across the zones to provide support and help commuters in need.
In the Ember Month program, the special Ember Month program of the ministry, FEMA is part of it. And out of the 54 or so roads that the Honorable Minister has mentioned, 17 of them have been assigned to FEMA, and we are mobilizing even now as we speak. A lot of these will be done on direct labor, and many others are already part of ongoing programs that FEMA has contracted since the beginning of the year.
It would be recalled that shortly after the inauguration, and specifically on the 8th day of December 2015, the minister addressed members of the public in a statement titled Setting the Agenda for Delivering Change, in which he set out what this administration inherited, what they plan to do, and what members of the public should expect from them. While assuring Nigerians of federal government's readiness to continue to serve, Fashola reveals that with careful thinking, planning, and a dedicated team of public officers, the ministry has transformed the neglected infrastructure sector into a productive economy with visible results and recorded qualitative progress.
If you're just joining us, the program is Infrastructure Weekly, where we x-ray the achievements of the Muhammadu Buhari-led administration. You can be a part of the program by tweeting at us at Infra Weekly and on Facebook, facebook.com/Infrastructure Weekly. Join us after this break for more on the program. Stay tuned.
Dear lottery operator, you've done a remarkable job so far getting into a business that has been highly criticized for many years. You've done well to uphold your credibility and boost confidence in the business. Kudos to you. This is just to remind you of the rules of the game as prescribed by the National Lottery Regulatory Commission. Gaming is not for persons under 18. Underage gaming is prohibited. Report illegal operators to the Commission, and also always remember the regulatory job of the Commission. Whatever your category, lotteries, sport betting, promos, scratch cards, games, it is the duty of the Commission to protect lottery players and the operators as well as promote transparency and accountability. Licensees are also expected to play their part, which includes remittances to the National Lottery Trust Fund. For more information, please go to natlotteregcom.gov.ng. The National Lottery Regulatory Commission. Lottery the right way.
The federal government, on assumption of office by the President Muhammadu Buhari, promised Nigerians that it will be business unusual in bridging the nation's infrastructure deficit, and the 3.5 years on it is indeed a new song for Nigerians in the development of infrastructure. With this in mind, and to see where legislative support can add more value to the strides made by the federal government, the Senate Committee on Works, led by Senator Kabiru Gaya, were in the southwestern part of the Nigerian for oversight duties, and we bring you details in these reports.
Since the advent of the Buhari administration, infrastructure development has taken a quantum leap in terms of conception, development and spending, but for many, seeing is believing, and with over 34,000 kilometers of roads scattered all over Nigeria, it is at times a sentiment that can go beyond infrastructure and into other realms. With this at the back of most Nigerians' minds, and with preparations for the 2019 budget eating top gear, the Senate Committee on Works, led by Senator Kabiru Gaya, is here on an oversight visit to some of the most strategically important roads in the country. The point of call this time is Lagos, after a visit to over 26 states where the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing is currently constructing one road or the other. The visit, which took the committee through the states of the southwest, commenced in Lagos, where the committee visited roads such as the Apapa Wharf Road, the Section 1 and 2 of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, among others. According to the chairman of the committee, is an eye-opener.
The federal government projects being on its effort, the president has agreed that the Ibadan or Lagos-Ibadan to be financed directly non-stop until the project is completed. This, I would say, is part of the effort of Senator Governor Omosu, and I congratulate him for that effort. Number two, we came around to do our road oversight. Fortunately, I will go around now to see one of his projects. This is one of the, I think, the largest now going to be in Nigeria, if not in West Africa. A big mall having a 12-story, 6-story, 7-story, and a mall in it.
The committee thereafter moved to Ogun State to inspect the Ajibandele Ore Road, the Lagos-Ota Abeokuta Road, and the Section 2 of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. At the end of the visit, the chairman says he is impressed by the quality of work done so far, but urges the contractors to expedite action on project delivery.
In an amphitheater, I, as an architect, a fellow member of Nigerian Architect, I'm impressed with the structure. I'm impressed with the mode of construction, and I would just want to appeal to my colleague, the senator and the incoming senator, inshallah, to do able to advertise this project. It's a silent achiever. It's good to be a silent achiever. It's in this kind of world, you need to let people know what you're doing. And with this mall I've seen, I'm very much impressed, and I've seen the road he's doing, the bridges, the flyovers. That's fantastic.
Contractors, Reynolds Construction Company, represented by its chief engineer, Fida Nato, declined to comment on the observations of the committee, which also included Senate Minority Leader Abiodun Olujimi. The Controller of Works in Ogun State, Joshua Popola, however, assures that the projects under the ministry in the state are being stringently monitored and supervised by the engineers. He, however, said the elongated time for the delivery of the project is due to the additional works and increased scope of work.
The initial contract period are supposed to end maybe by 6 months' time, but this contract sum has been reviewed upward, and when you review contracts upward, you have also increased the scope of work. The scope of work, that additional scope of work that we have now, we have 5 pedestrian bridges, we have the street lights, we have 2 gates to be built, then we have acceleration and deceleration lane, which were not part of the original contract. These have been introduced, these have been added, and that's why the completion period too has also changed.
For comments, inquiries and feedback, you can get in touch with us on the social media handles shown on your screen. We'll be back after this time out for a look at the power sector. Stay with us.
Coming together of opportunities This is what
Infrastructure is the backbone of development, which explains the Buhari government's effort at bridging the facility gap. Infrastructure Weekly is a television package designed to bring you latest information on hundreds of development projects going on in various sectors all over the nation.
There is no state in Nigeria today where you will not see our contractors busy at work.
Power generation, rural electrification, road rehabilitations, national housing scheme, construction of roads and rail lines across the country, you name it.
We are now able to produce 7,000 megawatt of power. That is no longer debatable.
Infrastructure Weekly is Nigerians working together for a better Nigeria. So be better informed to take better informed decisions. Watch Infrastructure Weekly, showing on Channels Television Thursdays 2:30 p.m., NTA Network Wednesdays 5 p.m., and Core TV News Fridays at 8 p.m. Infrastructure Weekly, making development known.
With the improvements made in the power sector since the advent of President Muhammadu Buhari administration, many Nigerians have commended the government, especially in continuing expansion of the transmission capacity through the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN. The chairman of the Senate Committee on Power, Senator Eyinaya Abaribe, will lead the committee on an oversight visit to some of the installations of the company in Lagos, commended the federal government through the TCN for improvements made so far, especially in the expansion of the transmission capacity.
From a paltry 3,500 megawatts capacity in 2015, the transmission grid has expanded its capacity to over 7,000 megawatts, though distribution is still lagging behind. The Transmission Company of Nigeria has indeed been the beautiful bride in the sector, with massive investment by the federal government. To see things and confirm the work done so far by the company following investment by the federal government in expanding transmission capacity is the Senate Committee on Power led by Eyinaya Abaribe. After seeing the equipment of the company around Lagos and the newly expanded and refurbished Ejigbo Power Transmitting Station, the committee chairman Eyinaya Abaribe has this to say.
Well, what we can say from what we can see here is that TCN has capacity, that is obvious. The installed capacity here, it's close to 300 kV or MVA. And from our interaction with the TCN staff here, evacuation to the discos and their customers, it's about 30% of the installed capacity, which means that there are still a lot of investments that need to be done by the discos and other consumers to be able to evacuate all the capacity here. The fact that only 30% can be evacuated there shows that, of course, that there are embedded losses that you can see. We want to commend TCN for the improvement we have seen in this substation. The substation was maybe 60 MVA and now is up to 300.
He ordered that the Senate will continue to provide legislative support to the government and also ensure strict adherence to the terms of each contract. He commended the Transmission Company of Nigeria for its strides in the delivery of projects, especially through indigenous engineers employed by the company.
We are very impressed with the work of TCN that is going on here. By the time we look at the other projects in and around Lagos, we will also... Lagos is the commercial hub of Nigeria, and we expect that when Lagos works, Nigeria works too. And TCN shouldn't concentrate all its efforts on Lagos. You have to also know that other parts of the country need to have the same type of enhancement of facilities. So the committee is satisfied, and we'll still look forward to going around to the other sites in Lagos to look at what they have done.
The committee chair, who said the meeting is to see what can be done to bring all stakeholders in the power sector into the same loop, described the privatization program as an ongoing story that cannot be washed away.
Our mission today is oversight of government investment in the Ikeja Electricity PLC. Perhaps Nigerians don't know that 40% of all discos are owned by the federal government, and as custodians of the people's mandate, our responsibility is also to look at all that and find out how these agencies are doing in terms of provision of power, in terms of improvement of services, in terms of also cash flow that comes back to government for its investment, and also what has come out of the divestment as a public policy. And we know that there are growing pains in terms of this privatization, but our conviction is that we didn't make a mistake in privatizing these companies.
Still staying with the power sector, the Transmission Company of Nigeria has again warned members of the public to respect the right of ways of its equipment. This, according to a release signed by the General Manager Public Affairs of the company, Ndidi Mba, will help in preventing the kind of situation that led to the extensive damage suffered by Tower 5 in Onitsha following a fire at a plastic dump site. It added that power is currently being supplied from its Bini-Asaba 330 kVA transmission line pending completion of repairs on the towers. That's it on this week's edition of the program. Join us again next week for another interesting edition presented by the ongoing efforts by the Buhari administration to bridge the nation's infrastructure deficits. Until then, continue to protect public utilities around you and be a good citizen by continuing to pay your tax. Thanks so much for staying tuned. I am Ajibola Onwuchekwa. Bye for now.